Hey Marcus, ready to ready?
Yeah. Get going?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Yeah. Haley, you're left. You want to be right-handed? You want to be on this side? Okay, I'll go on this side. Folks, we're going to get started if we may. Come on over. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Just doing a sound check. I apologize. I have a little bit of allergies, so I have a deeper voice than normal. So if you can't hear me, raise your hand, okay, and let me know. I will get it going. We'll move everybody in. Jacob, we're okay? All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcus Pochner. I'll be the host and facilitator tonight for the second quarterly update here for Uplands. Thank you again for taking your time on this beautiful Colorado evening to join us and get this update. I always start by thanking the partners at the city. It was their suggestion, and we very much appreciate it to have this quarterly meeting for the community, to provide regular updates, to come back to everyone. And you're starting to see a lot of the progress and the transition of the site. And we'll actually start talking about some of the neighborhoods and prospective development timelines on those. So again, thanks to the City of Westminster for being a partner in this and helping us host this meeting. Most importantly, thank you to Crown Castle, our Crown Point Academy. I so appreciate them hosting this. They've done it every time. And as we wrap up the school year, it's a really busy time, but they're still so generous in helping us out. So we'll go through to the next slide and we'll work through this together. Again, I'm Marcus Pochner. I'm joined by Kaylee. Kaylee and I are going to be kind of the co-presenters. She'll introduce herself and talk a little bit. And then finally, you're going to hear from Todd Johnson. Todd is our project engineer on this site. So the three of us will be here, and then we have some additional people available if there are questions. So we'll go forward to the next slide. So our agenda, ladies and gentlemen, just what we want to go through, kind of give you a coverage of where we're headed. We'll talk a little bit about the site overall. We'll transition to neighborhood planning process. There are actually 4 neighborhoods that have now been approved through the process. So we'll talk about those 4 neighborhoods. We'll go back and talk probably most importantly about the global engineering, what is happening around the site, all of that, the process and the construction timelines, and then come back and talk about the specific neighborhoods and the engineering process that goes with that. Next slide, please. I just will say, I think we do very well in this meeting. We don't really need a lot of guidelines, but again, thank you to Crown Point for going through this. I would appreciate that if we could hold all questions till the end. There will be ample time for question and answer. I'll be happy to call on you and we'll facilitate that question. So again, if we could just wait till the end of that, that would be great. This is again provided as an update on the construction. It's not kind of an up or down if something's moving forward. It's really to provide the background and the process and to be sure to provide a full update to the community. Next slide. So everyone knows the site, but we're going to be sure to show it. This is the overall Uplands community. So we think of it by parcels, right, to really go through it. Of course, we're right here at Crown Point Academy, just to orient everybody just east of Federal. So you can see the larger parcel A site, parcel B, C, and D. You can see some activity on all of these sites that is really happening right now. We'll actually talk about the different neighborhoods that have been approved in many of these different parcels and how they're moving through the process. So again, this is the overall context here at Crown Point. We're really going to start focusing on the infrastructure and the changes that you're going to start seeing that connect to things like Crown Point and all along 88th and 84th. Next slide. This is the neighborhood planning process. We're going to convert this or transition a little bit to the neighborhood planning. I think just an overall, you just saw the map that showed the overall outline of the site. But this is really a process slide. This is the process that we're going through with the decision makers, the city council, and the mayor going through the process, the planning commission, and really a very robust city process to go through the reviews, concept review. So what we're showing here is when you see a neighborhood that has a site plan shown below it, that neighborhood has been approved. It is through the process. It is ready to begin construction as we go through pulling permits and all of those things. But from a land use and entitlement standpoint, it has been approved. So B1 and A2, A4, and then just recently, the affordable housing community, the C2 community was approved as well. You can then see other communities that are moving through the process. Kaylee will talk about this a little bit more, but you can see all A1, A5, A3, A7, those are going through a review process. You really start to see the core of the site, the larger parcel A, all of these, how important it is to think about it as one larger community and then individual neighborhoods that are going through the process. Next slide, please. This is a transition to Kaylee because she'll talk about this. This is again the 4 neighborhoods that have been approved. We'll kind of go through those. So Kaylee, take it away and give us a little background on it.
Absolutely. This is the first overall neighborhood approved within the Uplands community shown in red in the right-hand corner of the screen. We're located between 84th Avenue and Bradford and Lowell. This community will provide 82 homes within B1 and a mix of single-family detached and paired homes. There's roughly 2.3 acres of PLD land that's been dedicated. And then there's a central park in the center here that has a tot lot, shade structure, and seating element. Next slide. The second neighborhood within the overall Uplands community is located in red up on the screen here. This one is on the western side within parcel A. It's located between West 87th Avenue and West 86th Avenue between Lowell and Irving, and just south of the 11 acres of PLD up to the north. This neighborhood will provide 135 new homes with single-family detached and rear homes. There's a publicly accessible park here in the center. This will have a community garden and some other park elements.
I'm just going to interrupt here for a second. These first 2 neighborhoods, again, B1 and A2, we had 6 questions that came in online. And the first question was about, hey, we're actually really interested in the homes. How do we start signing up for the list, the interest list? When is the timeline for that? So just to provide, these 2 neighborhoods, our kind of conceptual date that we want to begin construction is in the second quarter of 2025, and the first homes would be delivered for sale on this site at the end of 2025. So that's the anticipated schedule. Again, on both B1 and A2, that's the anticipated timeline for home bidding.
Next slide. The next one that's approved by City Council is planning area 4. This is the south side of A on the western portion. This neighborhood is between West 85th Avenue and 84th Lowell Irving. This will provide 125 homes and a mix of single-family detached tuck-unders, single-family detached just regular, and then townhomes and tuck-under townhomes. There's a publicly accessible private park here in the center. This will have park elements and play elements as well. Next slide. The other one that Marcus talked to was the C2. This is 13.77 acres on the right-hand side of the Uplands community. We'll have 247 homes, units in this. There'll be 40 to 80% AMI. And this one is really interesting in the fact of how infrastructure will be connecting here all the way up to 88 and 88 will, this will extend here as well. Next slide.
So this gives, again, that kind of in context. So this was the last neighborhood that Kaylee just showed. As you can see today, many of you may know the neighborhood well. The roadway actually doesn't exist here on Clay Street, Decatur. This will be PLD, public land dedication. there'll be a turnaround here. So that infrastructure really is going into parcel C there and extending across the site. We're of course, probably most excited to have the first affordable housing community moving forward. We wish that would have been neighborhood number 1. It's part of neighborhood 4. And we're really excited, again, as Kaylee said, those will be 40 to 80% AMI. Part of our PDP requirement, the city very thoughtfully requiring percentage of open space on this, or excuse me, percentage of affordable housing units on this site. So that's the community moving forward. Again, this just shows other processes that are going on. So you see here in purple, the neighborhoods that are in the city review process, and the orange here and kind of yellow color C1 and C1B. Those are beginning the planning process, and we're actively working on that. But it really shows all of the site, with the exception of this right here, has active applications kind of before or in the formal city process. Next slide. So we're going to transition here a little bit just to talk about the kind of global engineering on the site. And I'm going to give just a very brief overview, and then we're going to have our engineer come in more detail and talk about the processes that are related to it. So I'm going to show a few slides here again, just because this is what people really are seeing now. The activity on the site, the overlap grading that's occurred, some of those. If we can go to the next slide, please. This just is a slide that we have shown many times. It's reflective of the public improvements that are required since the PDP. It's in the preliminary development plan. These are the requirements, and it shows things that are, of course, on the site itself, and then off-site improvements and how those are made. And it does show that little hatched box around it. It's improvements by the city, but funded by Uplands, which was the agreement or per our agreements. So again, it really shows, obviously, we're focused on this site tonight, but it shows kind of the overall scope of the infrastructure. We're going to talk a lot about those, the $40 million plus in infrastructure improvements, and we're going to actually provide a couple updates on things that are happening right now. Go to the next slide. This is one that we're showing. You're seeing a lot of work on the west side of the site right off of Lowell. This is the extension on the storm drainage improvements down Shaw Boulevard. We've seen that work happen here. It is showing the upgrades that are approved. Probably most important, and actually Todd will talk about this in a minute, is that the Clomer has been approved on this site, and so is the master drainage permit. So from our last update that had not been approved, we have now fully been approved in that process, and that allows us to continue to move forward on the stormwater drainage improvements on the site. Next slide. This shows kind of that larger map that shows the infrastructure updates on Uplands itself. You see the blue are the water lines, the upgrades, the improvements that come throughout the site, the green that we just talked about, and then of course a full movement intersection right outside here on 86th and Federal. That's a very dangerous crossing today, as unfortunately we all know. So that's a very important movement there. And then starting to see the extension of infrastructure into parcel C as well. Next slide. This is a map that we certainly won't go through in great detail, but just so everybody understands, we've often talked about how this site is not connected to the fabric of the city at all. It does not have sidewalks on the edges. It does not have transitions. So it has been so important for all the values from a community standpoint, from an accessibility, and from a truly kind of community integration standpoint to really provide that pedestrian infrastructure as well. So this just shows the red is a 10-foot multi-use trail that comes around really on a lot of the perimeter of the site. Then you see the 8-foot sidewalks and then a few 6-foot local sidewalks internal to the site. This really extending all across the Uplands parcels brings it into the fabric. So if I have a bike and I live at Observatory Heights, I can follow these new trails, connected bike, dedicated bike areas, know the process, new crossings that are coming in, improvements here, and then of course the new infrastructure that comes into the site as well. So everybody's familiar. Many of you are great neighbors that live maybe just to the west or northwest or south of the site. But this shows the local connections that will be in place that will make this feel like the existing fabric of it. Next slide. By the way, we'll be happy to come back to that. If people have questions, we'll come back to this slide. This one we have always had this update. This is the overall parks PLD parkland dedication slide. Again, per the PDP, we are required to do just over 40 acres. I want to share something tonight because this was something that the community wanted to have. They wanted to have an assurance that the PLD and the cash in lieu related to that would be dedicated and would be paid. I just want to share that the PLD, the public land dedication, has now been completed on the site. These are City of Westminster parks now, or land area, and all of the money owed on the cash in lieu has been paid. So over $5 million has now been paid for parks cash in lieu. So we just completed that process. The city again has worked very diligently in the processing of that, but just wanted to show that those commitments that we made are happening before even homes are beginning construction. So again, full PLD dedication and cash in lieu has been paid to the city. Next slide. This is the last slide, and then we're going to transition to Todd. We often get questions about water efficiency on this site. So just, if I can ask for a little, we're trying to record this meeting, and there's a lot of talking here, excuse me. If we could try to minimize the talking, that would be terrific. This is a slide that we get asked about often to show the water conservation on the site. And City Council was incredibly thoughtful to go through and require that there actually be a reduction on the site. So you can see the first, historically, this site had 778 acre-feet of water allocated to this site. When we worked through the PDP, the approval process, we agreed that we should reduce that over 100 acre-feet to 678. So we are now basing everything on that promise of 678 acre-feet of water. We are going to use that. So we are now tracking by approved neighborhood and the planning to be sure that we are meeting that meeting that goal, that reduction goal. So when you see us showing here the compliance and how we're meeting that, we're actually even being more conservative. We are saving even more acre-feet of water across the site. How's that happen? Lot size is certainly one part of it, not to have the lots, the large lots, grass lots that we have, but probably more importantly is the efficiency that we're bringing and the sustainability of the plant palette, the water and methodology. 50% of your typical water use is outside today, so we're really addressing that situation there. Then, of course, intentionally, inside the home, we're meeting two different standards, efficiency standards, the water sensitive appliances and methodology we're bringing. So we're having a 30% reduction inside the homes. So that's how we are achieving the water conservation on the site. Next slide. I'm going to slide here. Kaylee's going to work through that. And then Todd, you can come on up. You can take over here in just a moment.
Absolutely. So this is going to walk us through kind of the processes that we've gone through and everything with the check mark are what has been approved to date. So on the left-hand side is our master development summary. That's your PDP, your master drainage and utility and all of those items needed to allow you to go to the administrative approval documents. So we're working through some others as well, but what's on the screen here is what's approved. Next slide.
Can you go back a slide so that we can read both sides of it? You only talk about one side.
Sure.
Please give us a chance to read it. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Todd Johnson. I'm going to go through talking about the improvements that you're seeing being constructed right now in the field. What you're seeing in front of you right now is a schedule that we're just projecting from the work that we have, plus the plans that are approved to date and the processing of the additional plans as we move forward. So as Marcus mentioned, most of the earthwork has been completed on the site. There, in the main part of the site, there may be some additional work that is occurring with some of the other parcels because of some subgrade work or sub-excavation work that needs to occur with home construction for other builders, possibly. So, and so we're working through that part with them when the other builders come online. But what you're seeing is all of the different major roadways that we have, Lowell, 88th, 84th, Federal, We've got our on-site construction, and then we are going to be starting on planning area B1, which is to the south and west. And so we are currently just finalizing our approvals there, and we should be starting grading within the next week or two on that parcel. That'll go on for a couple of weeks, and then we will start internal utility work within that parcel as well. One of the other elements that we're looking at starting along with the grading is actually working on Bradburn, because that's independent from the site itself. So we'll actually work on doing that work together with grading and other utility work, as I mentioned. We're very close as well on getting CDOT approval on federal, and so we're hoping to start that work probably within the next month, 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully. And that will go on probably for about 12 to 18 months. It's going to really depend on weather as we get into the fall season and winter on paving and so forth, and whether we can do that during that time frame. But those improvements will go from 82nd all the way up to 88th. As Mark has mentioned, that will include the traffic signal at 86th right out here, and other signal improvements that are going to be at 88th and also at 84th for that widening. So, next one. Here's the phasing, timing, and update. You see this on our website as well. So we're just providing this here tonight for you as a snapshot. But most of those items that you were seeing on the schedule are really articulated here as well. So as we mentioned, Federal Boulevard, we have the B1 grading. One of the other elements that we're doing that you might start seeing is actually the overhead power that will be lowered in a couple locations. So at 84th to the south here for that parcel development, we'll actually be lowering that from about Alcott all the way over to Federal. And then a couple of the other areas, we have to relocate some of the gas and electric lines, also reinforce the area. So this should also help the neighborhood by providing upgrades to gas and electric infrastructure within the overall community area. So again, this is something that you'll see from us on our website that we will keep updating as new things occur every couple of months, and then of course on a quarterly basis as well. Marcus did mention this. We did get the Clomar approval. So what that allowed both of us as a city and the developer, the contractors, to actually start moving forward now with the improvements of the regional detention facility, which should provide some improvements that are really going to reduce the storm drainage impacts down Shaw and of the overall area. So this pond actually mitigates flows for our overall site, and also, like I said, reduces the drainage that actually will go down Shaw. Those plans are approved as well for the Shaw outfall. So there'll be construction from about Circle all the way back to Lowell. That should be starting within the next week and a half. And that duration will probably be pretty short. We just have to install a larger storm drainage line that will run down Shaw and connect into this area here. So all those improvements have been approved, and we'll also be expanding the pond from what you see out there today. Here's just a snapshot as well that takes that same schedule and throws it on an overall exhibit for you, just giving you some rough time frames on what we think the construction durations will be. So we're starting here late in the Q1, basically into Q2 here for B1, and these improvements will probably push out into early 2025. You're getting this constructed, as we said, should be a pretty short time frame. There may be some paving that pushes, some of this intersection to a little later. All boulevard improvements are occurring as well. There's some electric coordination that we're doing with some poles that are on the east side. Those have to be taken down. Those lines have to be redone. And there's also some fiber optics that we're currently relocating that you may see some of that construction that's occurring out there today. You're seeing improvements on 88th, so we're doing that widening. We believe that we'll start curb and gutter here within the week probably. On 84th, you'll start to see water construction. That will occur from about Irving back over to Lowell. And then there's an additional larger line that's being constructed from 84th down to the Bradburn area that really creates that overall water looping that provides overall strengthening of the city system and completes a lot of the missing pieces that were not out here because this development did not occur or was kind of a missing link in the overall infrastructure. We also should be starting improvements in C here shortly. These plans are very close as well. There's some improvements on 88, Decatur, and also 87th. Those improvements will provide additional access for this parcel back in here, and then other parcels that are being processed right now, which is Crown Point expansion in this area and the Maker one to the north. And then, as I mentioned, you're seeing the 84th improvements as well. And then also, very quickly, you'll start to see this overhead come down along 84th. Here you can see B1. So we're just giving you an enlargement here on the civil improvements that you'll see for the project, the layouts that have been approved through the ODP, and the construction documents. Again, the grading is going to start here very shortly, and the infrastructure plans will then help us start building Bradburn here and doing those improvements and widening of that roadway.
We're going to keep going here with Todd, but I just want to interject. We've now transitioned back to the neighborhoods that we talked about that have already been approved. And we're starting to show you those global infrastructure improvements. We went through that, but now then you'll see the transition into the individual neighborhoods and the continuation of the utilities, the roadways, the grading, etc. So now we're coming back and finishing on those neighborhoods, talking about the associated timelines for the grading, infrastructure plans that come through. So again, Todd's group goes through all that process, works with the city, but this is now transitioning back to the individual neighborhoods. Next slide, please.
Here you have A2. So the grading work has already been accomplished on this parcel, and you're also seeing some of the main infrastructure that's being put in within this roadway, and also 87 will come back and continue the infrastructure work on the rest of the internal roadways, and then service to all of these individual lots. This construction will probably start in about another month to month and a half. We're also getting approval on these plans very shortly. Here's 84, which is down to the southwest portion of 84th and Lowell. Same here. Perimeter infrastructure is being put in right now. This one is probably about 2 months away. Grading again is done for this one. And the infrastructure is probably about 2.5 months away from it's starting to be commenced in that area. This is the C2 parcel. This is all the way on the northeast side of the overall area. They are finishing up their construction documents right now. One of the sets of plans that we were talking about, or I was referring to, is 88th improvements here, 87th, and also coming back to Clay. And with that, we are creating a turnaround parking in this area, pretty much a trailhead in that location. And that will also tie into trail connections that we'll have going back into Highland Hills.
Excellent. As always, folks, we put this back. This information is all available at uplandscolorado.com. We just wanted to come back, give the quarterly update, provide this overview, and then we're happy to go to questions and answers to really hear from you any other questions that you have, but you're seeing substantial site progress. I was around the site earlier this afternoon and looking at that, and even more coming in the coming months here. I think we can go back and show a number of the overall site plans, but again, a lot of approvals since the last quarterly meeting, now moving through the process. So before we transition here to question and answers, again, I just want to thank the city managers here. Thank you, Mr. Freitag, and a lot of senior staff, and then we have a special guest. Thank you, Councilor Ireland, for joining us as well. So we appreciate that very much. We're happy to go to questions and take any questions you may have. Yes,
Are
sir.
these available on the web? On the
Can you tell me
website?
how that will transition that slides to be available, some of that information? So first of all, the presentation is available.
Yes, that's the main
right.
thing.
So that's what is available.
Yeah, we'll be posting, so we recorded this whole meeting. We're live streaming right now onto a webinar, and then we'll post this whole meeting and any questions asked on YouTube.
Terrific. Thank you, Jake. Questions? Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, give me a little late, so with the construction and all that moving through smoothly so far, what's the estimate of the first set of houses?
Yeah, sure. So if we go back, Jacob, if it's fair to ask, maybe to that overall site that shows kind of the approval strategy. One of the things that we're kind of talking about from first homes on the site. So the first homes will be in these two neighborhoods. One more, you did great. We're the A2 neighborhood and the B1 neighborhood. So here and here, those two neighborhoods will be the first two neighborhoods that would move forward. We are anticipating or shooting for construction to begin on those homes in the second quarter of 2025, and the first homes would be available at the end of 2025. So that's the process to go through. So again, really about a year from now, construction commences in B1 and A2 neighborhoods and then available towards the end of next year. Also, this neighborhood is tracking to be on about the same timeline, maybe even slightly ahead on the affordable housing community. So again, really excited that the affordable housing will be coming online as well as the market rate at about the same time. Yes, John.
Okay, it was my understanding when the DEP was approved.
Sure.
That the water line running from 88 north, that was on one of your slides.
Sure.
12.
Okay.
But this development was dependent on that being in place before you started building.
Great.
I understand that there's nothing in the city's pipeline other than,
No pun intended. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't believe there's anything designated or paid for or approved for that. So
Great.
how are you stating timelines when it's all dependent upon that? Nick, I've got several questions. I'll just get them all out of the way.
Yeah.
Why are you people not being good neighbors?
Okay.
To that I say, you get a major gas line on 88 that was marked by the utility people.
Sure.
We've had several major stormwater violations on your part.
Sure.
The dust control. There is, I can't stand in my yard because of the dust.
Okay.
And as of yesterday, they dropped the water tank. The water trucks did not move today. It's ridiculous.
Right.
CDPHE has rules about that. You're not following them.
So I'm
Next.
I'm gonna stop you there because I need to repeat your questions so people can hear them. So I don't want to lose track of them, John. And you'll correct me if I miss something. So your first question was north of 88, the long wall. We have always shown water line or water capacity improvements. And we said the site was dependent upon that happening, but it doesn't show that there's any anticipated construction on those. So that's the first question. I'm going to turn to Todd to go to that, and then I'll come back to your next question.
On the water.
Yeah.
So the water side, the city has actually run modeling that shows we can have at least 250, if not maybe even 500. They're finalizing this report right now.
But that's not what the DEP was doing.
Let us finish
How
the
much you
question.
get him.
The modeling shows that after we do our improvements, which is improvements that are on 84 or 88, the Irving line, the 84th, and the Bradburn connection here on Lowell, those improvements help solidify the overall network, water network in the area. And those improvements alone will help support the initial home construction that we have. And then as the city finishes up the water line design and construction, we have given them a schedule of what we think the takedown is on all these development parcels. And they have verified that in their modeling. We should be finalizing that within the next week or two with them to show that. So.
City comment in terms of
Sure.
their plans for, like, when is that project getting off the ground? And are you gonna make the 2025 go live, I guess?
So good evening, Keith Klein, Assistant City Engineer. So thank you, Ms. Ray. The question is the city moving forward with that design and when are we going to be delivering on it? We're currently under contract and have our design engineers working on the improvements north of 88 and through, just as Mr. Johnson has mentioned. We've done some initial modeling that does show that through the water connections as described by Mr. Johnson, the water line improvements further north do not need to happen to allow the 400 homes to move forward. We are a little bit behind schedule. That water line work north of 88th Avenue will not be completed by 2025, but we are looking to get that under construction about that time with an anticipated date of completion in 2020, late 26 or 2027.
So I'm going to transition to the next question that was brought up. The next question was.
While we're on
Sure.
the water.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Check this.
Yeah.
I saw you had a chart there with how much water you're gonna save. Does that include the, how many acre feet of water are we using to water down all of this property for whatever it is they claim they're using it for? It's obviously not dust control, but I've got a report from the city. I know how much water's been used.
Great.
How does that affect that? And not just on the A property, but throughout the whole process?
Yeah.
We're using hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. How does that figure into?
Happy to answer the question. The question was water that's on the site now. The first part was an encouragement to provide more water, and now it's tracking the amount of water that we're using, right, in that mitigation. So we have a slide that shows the 778 acre feet, and we've reduced that by 100 acre feet to 678. Todd, on-site construction water, things that are being used now to mitigate dust and so forth. Is that included in that, or is that a separate, and is that drinking water? Tell me what's that water that is used?
Yeah, the water calculations that we're talking about in this slide presentation are not the construction process. Construction process gets metered, and that is paid for as part of our construction for the site.
I understand that, but that what falls into the water budget, the water allowance, the acre feet of water that you're using. You're not disclosing that, not being transparent.
The water calculations are for the ultimate development.
Right?
As far as that's concerned, those calculations, none of the calculations that the city has for the overall model take into account construction. That's paid for by the metering process that we have and as part of the construction permit that we hold.
And by the way, nor would it on any development. There's always the construction process, then it's about that water allocation. So nothing different about that. But I appreciate your comment about monitoring it. You transitioned to a very fair question about, you said a statement, you're not being good neighbors, and cited a couple of examples. So I'm going to say that, and more too. That's great. I appreciate that. Our goal is to be the best neighbors that we can be. One of the harmony ways to do that is to have meetings like this and stand in front of you and take your questions and go through that. I'm going to readily admit, we all know that there have been a couple of, during some major storm events, some runoff events, that we had a couple of silt fences and some other issues come up. The city, doing exactly what they should, has either put in place a fine or a process that they go through. So the city has acted correspondingly, correctly, and has provided that. It is unfortunately going to happen in construction that we're going to have some of those mistakes. It does happen. It happens on almost every construction project. Doesn't mean it's okay. We're going to try to limit those. But John, I appreciate your comment, and we are trying to be as good at neighbors as we can every day. one of those things is to really know so people can anticipate those changes that are coming in. So that was some of them, but we're trying to address that and go through it, and we appreciate any way we can continue to work.
Address the dust.
The dust,
I
yeah,
want to bring up,
yeah, sure.
you're supposed to revegetate any stockpile of soil within 60 days.
Yep.
And that is part of dust reduction and soil erosion. You guys haven't done that one, I don't.
Great. So the question is, if I can say, Karen, as a question, 60-day revegetation, are we in that process? Does the city monitor that? Just asking about that process, and then the overall dust mitigation on the site.
Yeah, so I actually drove by and saw water trucks watering the site at 4:30 today.
No.
And there's 3 of them out there. I saw them, okay?
No.
And we also have been disturbing the areas that are in construction with utilities right now, but we're also going through and seeking the rest of the site. That has just started on the eastern side, and that roughening has occurred, and planting is occurring within the next week on the site. So those 2 elements, the watering I've seen, I just saw it, and it does occur.
But just to be clear, we won't go through back and forth. You saw what? You made a very astute. Yeah,
I live across the street, I see it.
I understand.
All day, those trucks did not move.
So I appreciate.
The white one that's like a fire truck.
John, I appreciate it. I think let's try to go through our decorum rules again and just let's try to focus on that. One thing I'll be clear about is something you said very respectfully and correctly. CDPHE monitors, has a requirement on that. We are meeting those, all of those requirements and want to meet all of those requirements. I appreciate your comment. I'm sorry that didn't happen. You didn't see water trucks earlier. That is something we're committed to. We know how Colorado wind comes in. So John, we'll try to do the best that we can do on that for sure. Okay. Sir, I'm happy to say we'll try to do better as well. That's what I just said. You're gonna have to be a little louder, sir.
I got a video, 5 days apart there.
Yeah.
No water trucks.
Yeah.
At all.
So again, and thank you very much. I'll just, folks, we will continue to try to do everything we can. You are right, construction, folks, it interrupts. I understand. There is dust, there is mitigation. That is why we're trying to work through this process right now. It is why we're trying to do concurrent improvements. So I appreciate it. Eric will certainly try to do better on that and meet those standards. That's great. So other questions, anybody else? Did I miss anybody? Sir, if you could please direct your question to me. I'm up here. Well, you're speaking during the meeting, so let's speak to me. Yes, please.
Other questions? Why do I continually see OSHA violations going on over there?
Why do you continually see violations on the site?
Yes, you want me to give examples?
No, I'm happy to address it. We're happy to go through it. That's no problem at all. Thank you for asking the question. Todd, you want to go through that or any? I think the specific example was an
Gentlemen,
example.
pitch without shoring. Workers riding in the back of the pickup trucks.
Just address it.
Workers riding in the bucket of front loaders. Those are all OSHA violations. Why do I continually see that? And most importantly, most of the last 3-4 days in front of my house with the whole one wall.
Great. We'll answer the question now.
Are those things that I should just be calling OSHA on?
Yes, frankly, if you're seeing OSHA violations, we have no problem with you calling OSHAs, right? Each one of the contractors that we have on site is responsible for the safety of their employees, plus the safety of the public. And if there is a violation, we'd love to hear about it from that side.
Also, another thing that I've been observing is I can count no less than 5 porta potties from my porch. But yet I continually see the guys up there on the wall dropping trowel and taking care of business behind a piece of equipment or behind one of the shoring pieces.
Great.
Well, that's not right.
I'm probably not going to take a lot of time to repeat that.
My wife shouldn't be subjected to that. My neighbors shouldn't be subjected.
Sir,
Why do I have porta potties?
hey, John, I need you to allow us to answer your questions, okay? Respectfully. I appreciate very much you're giving some great examples of things we can do better on. We take no umbrage with what you're saying. and we will do everything our can. What we can do with all the different contractors on the site is try to have team meetings in the morning. We have project managers to make sure those things don't happen, right? You are citing things that unfortunately sometimes happen on construction projects. That doesn't mean it's acceptable. So I agree with you. I don't think we have to go into great recitation when there's others around, but we're happy to address that and we'll continue to go through that. So thank you, I'm sorry.
I wanted to point out that the site-wise people.
Yes.
They have a porta potty on the
Yes.
trailer, they supply to their workers, so
Terrific.
they're not running behind equipment doing that. They're right there in front of the school, for God's sake.
We understand. I
If you
couldn't
had
agree more.
kids at that school, would you want them seeing workers?
Sir, I just said again for the fourth, I could not agree more. I have 100% agree with you, and we'll try to address that with the construction on the
It's not your
site.
first project, is it?
It is not, sir, not at all.
Well, we should have thought of this stuff years ago.
Yeah, I think, John, like, we'll continue to work through, and folks, just as you're listening, there's always questions about this, and I understand that, and John, it doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It means we've got to do better on those, so we'll try to do that. So specific requests, things on site-wide, workers on the site, behavior on the site, sometimes we hear about debris blowing off the site, so we're gonna work on all those things, John. We appreciate you all as neighbors and
Could you
going through
also
that
address
process.
the individual that drives up and down the street and makes obscene gestures at my house?
Great.
I'm sure it's because I've got the Save the Farm signs in my front yard, but I don't need to see that, and again, my wife doesn't need to see that. We
Sure.
should sit.
I don't know anything about that, but I appreciate
We
it,
should
John.
be able to sit on our porch and not be subjected to that.
Sir, I'm gonna go to the next person for a question. I think you've made a great round of points, so I'll see if there's somebody else, and I'm happy to come back to you. Is that okay? Anybody else have comments? Yes,
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the water,
please.
and Mr. Clinton.
That's great. Go.
So my understanding is of course, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no budget for construction site water use, yet it is coming out, we don't have recycled water down on this end of town. So it's coming out of the drinking water supply to water down the site. If that were actually happening, you would be using a lot of water,
Okay.
given the dry climate. Do you have an estimate, on the effect on the drinking water table that this is gonna have? It's a huge project, and there obviously a tremendous amount of dirt work is going on.
Sure.
Second, in Mr. Klein's statement, the city is taking responsibility for expanding and modernizing the water pipe north of 92nd, or down to 988, but that won't be completed until perhaps 2026. So your guesstimate is that you can support 400 homes. I assume that includes the apartments on the east side of Federal. That will halt construction then if there's no water, right? You won't be able to put any houses on the market. You can have new dirt all you want, but if you have no water, you're not going to be able to actually construct.
Correct. So we are adding a 24-inch water line and then 16-inch over to here to connect to the existing system. So the city is managing the project. It is paid for and funded by Uplands for that water line improvement to go up north to our water tanks off of 97th Avenue. We are modeling to ensure that there is enough water to get these first phases in. And then with that plan, as we heard, the construction for these homes is not going to begin until 2025. So it's going to take some time to even be able to occupy these homes. That gives us that time that we'll be able to run that water line improvement to provide more redundancy and more water availability down here. The 778 acre feet, that has been budgeted for this site forever. So, for a while since we've been allocating water. So what was mentioned earlier, if another project, they go and obtain a construction water meter or fire hydrant meter, they can pull that and be doing some other construction here. If we just think about it for Uplands, we're pulling water currently here. We have 778 acre feet per year to use on this site. So this is not going to do that. We can obtain how much water usage has been done during construction right now, but for all intents and purposes, Uplands is paying for the construction water, and it's taking from the allocated water that was for this site already. So it's not taking from existing users, it's using the water that's already been allocated for this residential site.
I wish you would have asked that question to start with. That would have been very helpful. Yeah.
And then just one follow-up on that.
Yeah.
If you could just comment on the budget, you said that Uplands is paying for the water line improvements and expansion. Is that budget actually available and with actual numbers attached? Their payment versus what their construction costs will be, since you're as the city managing and contracting out that project? I assume that taxpayers will not be handed any kind of a bill or it would come out in any way of general funds. It will all be billed to the Uplands. And if you run over budget, who pays for that?
Great.
Great question. So currently, right now, the city has over $1.5 million of Uplands money for the design. And part of our public improvement agreement with Uplands is that when this goes out to bid, we will then understand what the true construction cost is, and they will be paying for that construction cost and the construction management associated with watching the improvements being made. So we did not set a hard number because, if we would have done this 4 years ago, chances are that number would be off. So Uplands understood that as well and partnered with the city that, yes, they understand they were going to fit the bill, but that will come once we actually get bid numbers. So we know who to go with, who's going to be the contractor to be awarded. And at that time, Uplands will provide the funds for that.
Maybe last part of that question was, when that happens, contracting goes through, if there's add-ons, costs, that's something you work through in the contract. If there's any cost overruns, how does that get addressed as you go through?
And that will still be the negotiation with the city and Uplands will cover that. So we will always be a partner providing the information. This contract is going to be large enough that it will be in front of council, so our public will be able to hear and observe that at the time that we're presenting it to council for the approval in order to move forward with construction.
Perfect. Great question. Other questions? Yes, please, Councilman.
So we have a question of water, how about electricity?
Okay.
There's projects in the city, there's not enough.
Okay. Yeah, so question, if somebody didn't hear it, just to repeat for everybody, was we've had a number of questions about water and the allocation and the conservation there. What about electricity and utilization on the site itself? So I'm going to turn to our team to address the electric side, the other side of the equation.
Yeah, we've been working with Excel for about 18 months now, actually. And probably been working with them for probably 4 years on the outside of the project, just telling them what's going on. So they have all of our unit counts, our demands on the overall project, and we have initial designs on the reinforcements to the site that are going to occur, plus all of, like we were talking, the 84th lowering that we're going to be doing. So all of that work has been identified to Excel. They have assured us that there are enough improvements that we will be making to not disturb any of the existing residents, but only provide reinforcement to the area with our improvements that we will be putting in from the electrical side and also from the gas. Actually, if you go on 88th right now, you see some gas line that's being upgraded from about Lowell over to about Irving. Those are improvements that we are doing. Plus, we have reinforcements in the site that will help, again, connect north-south and east-west through this entire area and provide those reinforcements. But we have worked, and we continue to work with Excel all the time on making sure that this project is, one, putting in the infrastructure, and it's not causing any problems with the existing neighborhood around it. So.
They're not requiring an additional transformers for 2,600 residents.
Transformers? Oh, we'll have hundreds of transformers on the
No,
site.
I know, it's a 5 year, I work for an electric utility, very large. And you're 5 year wait on transformers right now.
Yep.
For new transformers, you're saying that itself, the engineer working with the state, there's no additional substation additions that need to be put in place to support this?
No, there's
Do you have
no,
the infrastructure?
there's no expansion of any of the substations. There's a substation just to the north. They had looked at that at one point. That was not needed. So the existing infrastructure that they have currently at 88th and in the federal area and so forth, and then to the south with the feeder line that comes along with D parcel, all of that existing infrastructure is acceptable to take the additional demand that we have.
Great. Next question, Karen.
Are you saying you're lowering 84?
The question was, are you saying you're lowering 84?
Or just the power lines?
Power lines, take it from overhead to buried.
Because, when you're talking about the accessibility within the development, and, pedestrian accessibility, I'm seeing these steep slopes and I'm trying to figure out how in the world you can be connecting sidewalks that are handicap accessible to the, I just don't see how that's.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to. The question was, as you go by today, seeing the slopes that you see on the site on the grading, how are we going to have accessible sidewalks and how we work through that process? So we're doing, maybe these gentlemen can describe just initial grading right now. We have to meet all of those ADA requirements and accessibility. And again, that slide that we have is just dedicated to those commitments. We show how those happen. As you well know, Karen, 84th, there's some substantial change there. There's a 50-foot fall across from here to here, right? Kind of looking that across the site. We've addressed that. We have a plan where those are all meeting accessible requirements. It probably doesn't look like it today. I fully agree because that's the initial grading. But when they're constructed, that will be in place. This gentleman and then Joe, yes.
Well, this is all construction, that's fine.
Yeah.
Has anybody projected how many people there will be in this area over the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so I appreciate it. The question was how many people. So we've talked about the unit count that would be here on the site. I think what we've looked at is really the diversity of housing products, right? There's multifamily, there's affordable, single family, smaller lot, right? All the different things. So I think we have a very good analysis of what that total number is. What it usually comes out to is actually the traffic studies, right? You see a lot of the traffic studies, the impact of that, where that is the schools. So part of the PDP, when we went through, it actually had a unit max that was allowed across each one of these neighborhoods. And then all of the correlating infrastructure has to comply with that. Schools, roads, sidewalks, all of the things that you would think about. So we know that, yes, sir, there is certainly going to be an increase, right, in the number of people. But again, we long argue and long believe that those some number of people are driving by this site today and driving from further out. And we're going to change those patterns in the way people live and create a complete neighborhood here. Yes, John, I promise. Yeah.
Back to being a good neighbor, and I'll just touch briefly on this because I've got a couple other things.
Sure.
8835, buildings listed as an Uplands property. Continual trash dumps up there and graffiti that has to be continually reported to code.
Okay.
You guys need to take care of that. Next question, and I've talked with Mr. Burke about this. We need somebody's support on 88 and on Lowell as their cone zones. Now, I thought when I grew up, you weren't supposed to speed in cone zones, but
True.
Apparently that doesn't apply anymore. And my ask of Mr. Burke was, can the city do something in the way of putting up construction, 20-mile-an-hour zone?
Okay.
For the worker safety as well as for the resident safety, because again, the way they've got Lowell jog by my house, I've got people literally driving on the sidewalk.
Okay. Great.
So we need some help there. And like I say, that's an ask of the city or the police department, or somebody needs to take care of that. And I was informed that you're aware of that. Haven't seen anything on that. That was a couple, 2-3 days ago.
Yep. Go ahead.
So, thank you, Mr. Palmer, for the comments. So it's posted 30 miles an hour. The city do support the reduction down to 20 miles an hour for the construction zone. So I believe that has been relayed to the contractors, and we're working to get the speed reduction signs out there.
Is that the city's responsibility or the contractor's?
Contractor's responsibility, so we placed it on them, but
Well, along with that, then are we gonna get support from the PD?
I will ask, once those signs get out there, we will ask for PD to make some more, make a better presence.
Okay, one other quick question. You mentioned the retention pond being moved. Where's it being moved?
Yep.
Where the current Uplands Lake is, where's that being moved to?
So the interim detention facility today, Todd, maybe talk about where that is and where the permanent comes.
The original pond was put in outside of the floodplain limits. So this entire area back down here was actually going to be regional pond, still is a regional pond. We're just expanding that over to Lowell. So it was.
So it's not moving, you're just opening it up further.
Exactly.
Where the ducks will have more room.
Yep, please.
Is that where the old Bradford was?
Correct.
Where the drainage?
Yeah, where the drainage today just goes over, you know.
Drainage shows us the way, yes.
And what is the usage of this? Are you sure what's gonna happen?
Actually, it won't hold water later on. It will drain after events. It will drain down. It has a very dependency on time, just on what the storm events might be. But the upper portion of that basin, we're actually engaging our group right now to work on how we engage that from the landscaping side, also from an engagement more of a partner of it. So.
Yeah. To go on, to add on to that, so the Uplands team has really been trying to be creative with the detention basin, and so it's going to be split into two. So there's going to be a lower section that's closer to Lowell that the minor flows go up, see that flow up and then drain. And by state law, the ponds are supposed to be drained after the last drop of rain within 72 hours. You cannot detain or retain the water. You're only holding it back and then releasing it. But then there's going to be an upper chamber for like the 100-year event. But what will be nice about it is in these minor storms that we get, that shouldn't be wet, and it's almost going to be like a large park area, open area for our residents, current and future, in this spot. So it's kind of a nice, unique way of handling this large regional detentions, because it's having to take the flows from all of this. So, yes.
Great, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's great. We're right at 6:30, folks. We're doing great. John, go right ahead.
If anybody else got a question?
No, please.
It's okay. And I've asked this numerous times, as well as a lot of the neighbors. Can we please address the 84th and Lowell intersection, the light there, where we can alternate the north and south? I understand that's possible. I know you and I have talked about it, Keith. I can't tell you the number of days I see traffic back up from 84th clear past my house, which is midway on Lowell.
Yes.
Is there not a way that we can regulate traffic, single lane north going, turn red, single lane south going?
Yes, we can. I can look at that. So what Mr. Palmer is asking is at the existing traffic signal intersection of 84th and Lowell. Right now, there's not the ability to turn left at a protected left arrow that we get used to. And so since it's a single lane, one vehicle that wants to turn left holds back the rest of the queue. So the request is to look at phasing. So in order to do phasing, we would hold back the southbound and let the northbound green go. That, we could look at that. That may not alleviate the backups because you're still holding the people, so you still may see people going back towards your home.
Well, maybe let's try and do a traffic study.
Okay, transportation engineering has been watching this. We have not had accidents there due to the left turn lanes. And, it still is operating, but we will continue to look to see if we can improve that.
Thanks for the comment. We've met a number of times with Bellevue Christian as well about that issue. And we're all aware of, now that school is almost out, when that timeline comes back, when the kids, teachers come back in. So we appreciate it, John. I think we're all really mindful of that.
Today was yesterday.
That's right. Yesterday was the last day. So I'm not saying you're going to see a reduction, but that's something we're really trying to watch is when school comes back. Can't believe I'm thinking about that. So I'm going to give a couple of questions.
Saying that we have 6,500 cars a day on all.
I understand the counts very well.
The department.
Yeah, no problem. We appreciate it. That's a good comment. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Please, you're allowed.
Sorry.
No worries.
So I guess I'm a potential buyer. Being a very tiny family, I'm really trying my best to get our own little house. So your project was like an opportunity for us to make it happen. So how do I make sure that I stay on top of the list that you guys will reach out to us? It's available.
So I'm going to come back over here and just repeat that. So an interested person or party in a house on that, a smaller family wanting to find that. How do you get involved in like an interest list, availability list? So we actually had this because we appreciate, we got a number of questions. Actually, 6 of the questions we got were about, hey, how do we get on a list? How do we sign up to buy a home here? We are starting to have those initial discussions with the builders that will be here in B1 and A2. And they will start probably their interest list and go through. So I'm going to tell you this. One, just we'll get your name tonight, okay? Or anybody who would like to do that tonight. But then secondly, we'll have a formal process of going through and announcing when the interest list, some of those things are happening. So we are really starting to hear from people about, hey, what are the homes like here? What are the homes, the different things? So we'll work with you after tonight, and then in the coming months, I'm sure that's still a number of months away, we'll have a formal announcement about how you get on the interest list. Okay, great, thank you. All right, folks, I'm happy to take another question if I see one, but I think we're in good. I do want to thank Councilor Ireland and Councilor Carmelia for being here. Thank you very much for both of you being here. Again, to the city of Westminster for having this meeting, encouraging us to host it. So y'all are great neighbors. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the third quarter. Bye-bye. Thank you.